Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Paul Church. Welcome to People, Culture and Tech. I am the Managing Director of Interquest. People, Culture and Tech is our community. We set up back in the depths of lockdown version 1 last year. We were looking for a way to give some value and help our clients when things were perhaps so strong on the hiring front. And we came up with this, a community where we could share different ideas, solutions, challenges, passions around how we can make all our businesses just a little bit better. We did about 20 episodes at the beginning of the year, and I've been a bit more sporadic as the year's gone on, because I wanted to make sure the content is always original, it's valuable, and I didn't want to recycle. But I certainly think today's conversation is apt as we discuss the competition for talent. We're all in it right now. The market, having been in recruitment for 13 years myself, the market is unlike anything I've ever seen before in terms of candidates moving, or the shortage of candidates, or quality ones anyway. There are people in our business who have been in recruitment far longer than me, and they say the same thing. It's crazy out there. So we're going to discuss today the competition for talent, what we need to be doing, what should be aware of, hopefully have some ideas we can take away and implement in our own businesses as well. And I'm joined by two guests today, Diana and Dani. It's great to have them both back. Both have been on before. Dani, I believe you're a football fan, so you'll be happy to know you have scored a hat-trick today. It is your third time on the People, Culture and Tech podcast, so thank you for that. So Dani, would you kick off with you? Do you mind just giving a bit of an introduction to those who don't know you about who you are, what you do, and why this topic's so important to you?
Yeah, so I'm a global director of talent for a company called Collinson. We provide loyalty and benefit to frequent business travelers. So we were really impacted by the pandemic. And in my role, I look after talent development, talent management, and talent attraction. So the whole end-to-end talent experience and journey.
Fantastic. Thanks, Dani. Great to have you back. And Diana, if you would mind just giving us a bit of an intro to yourself and your background and why this topic's important to you as well.
Sure. So my name is Diana George. I'm with By George HR Solutions. It is a consulting company, human resource consulting company that I started myself about 3 years ago. And it came as about because I was working in the industry, and I realized that there were so many opportunities to help small to mid-sized businesses just improve their not only retention, but who they hire, how they go about doing it, and having a great company culture so they can expand their business. So I'm excited to be here as well. I'm jealous, Dani. You 3 times. I'm going to have to catch up to you.
Fantastic. Thanks both of you for being on today. Really, really happy to have you, and really happy to have this conversation. Thanks everyone for joining us as well. I appreciate these days, webinars, it's tough to get people on a webinar these days. We webinared out a little bit, but we've got over 20 on this day, which is great. So as always, please, as much audience participation as you care to give me. Any questions you've got, if you want to pop your virtual hand up, I'll invite you to ask the question yourself, or you can put something in the chat as well. That is fine. I'm sure the more of you and the less of me, the better this conversation will go. But if not, that's fine. I've got plenty of questions to get us going. So just to set the tone, I suppose, in what this competition for talent looks like. So at the moment, I'm doing the virtual rounds, presenting data to our clients at Interquest as to what's going on out there and why is it so tough. So across all industry and markets, in pre-pandemic, there were 1.6 million job postings per week. As of the end of September, beginning of October, that number is now at 2.3 million job postings per week. So we're talking about there's 700,000 more jobs being advertised per week than there were back in March 2020, which, by the way, was a good market. You know, for us recruiters, we were expecting good things in 2020 before the pandemic hit. If you're looking in tech, data and digital, there's around 50% more vacancies being advertised than pre-pandemic. So again, if you're working in these niche spaces and you're thinking, God, why is my job so hard? That's why. So that's just setting the tone a little bit with some of the data that's out there. Diana, what we start with you? If you could just kind of, I suppose, share some of your anecdotal experience or insights as to what you're seeing in the market out there and what's happening through your eyes.
Sure, and I'm glad that you asked that question, because I'm in the midst of a major recruiting cycle right now, and I'm actually hiring a human resource director. And I have to say, I was just amazed at not only the response, but the quality of applicants that came through at this time. And so there's so many people there, and the competition is so fierce. But what impressed me also is when you're asking questions to people, they're coming with not only their own set of questions, but there's this synergy or the reason why they're looking for this job. They're looking to have not only the work-life balance to make sure that everything is synergized in their life. And that also goes into career, where I think before the pandemic, that wasn't necessarily the focus. It was kind of like, okay, we have this job, I'm going to come in, I'm going to do what I need to do. But people have really started reevaluating what's important to them. And you're seeing this, and you're seeing this in the interview process as they're actually talking to you as well. So it has made it even more fierce and the competition stiff in terms of getting those good people, because everybody's looking at the same time.
Really fantastic. Dani, what are you thinking? What are you seeing?
Well, I think what would be good is to give maybe a bit of a story to kind of what this year's looked like for us at Collinson. I think that maybe that's a nice way of answering the question. So, pre-pandemic, we 80 to 70% of our revenue came from travel and from specifically access to airport lounges. So we would provide our members access to airport lounges when they travel. So pre-pandemic, we would see 150,000 lounge visits per day globally from our members. That went down to 250 lounge visits per day in the first lockdown. So we were massively impacted by revenue. We went through the largest redundancies that we've ever seen in our company history. We had a lot of people on furlough. We had a recruitment freeze for nearly, for 7 to 8 months. During that recruitment freeze, we were asking people to work harder than they've ever worked before. We weren't giving them necessarily the tools and resources to alleviate their work. And some people were doing the job of 2 or 3 people. Yeah, and we were still making the company function. As we've kind of come out of this pandemic, and we're now growing back and looking to replace the roles we've lost, people in our organization have said we would like to be rewarded and recognized for the hard work they've done and for the fact that we're keeping the lights on. And we have started to address that, but because the market now has become so competitive and organizations are offering higher salaries, more benefits, people have more choice. So we are caught between this balance of this great resignation of people resigning and moving on to different jobs and doing different things, versus also trying to attract people to replace those people who are leaving, but also trying to attract people to grow back and to bring back the jobs that we lost during the pandemic. So we're kind of like in this really kind of conundrum that's really challenging for us, and it's put a spotlight on our remuneration, our salary, our benefits. Something we to be honest, we should have looked at pre-pandemic, but actually it's put more of a spotlight on it. Are we keeping up to date with the market? Are we offering the best remuneration? Are we offering the best salaries? Are we really offering good flexible benefits? And actually, we could probably be doing better in some aspects in a lot of areas. So it's forced us to really think about improving what we have internally to keep our talent, and also helping us to attract our talent. And the other thing we've done is that talent acquisition used to be a standalone function. It was very kind of bums on seats, very much a commodity. We brought it into kind of the people development talent. We've brought it into the kind of people development L&D space, and so now I have created a team where we've got talent development and talent attraction under one roof, which is talent. So now what we're looking to do is to create a better talent experience and talent journey from the moment you're recruited to the moment you join the business, making sure you've got good career development. We're investing in you so we keep you long term. So that's kind of like where we're at.
It's interesting because it sounds like you've assessed where the business is at and what needs to maybe improve, what needs to be changed, what needs to be kept the same. Have you been able to move quickly enough to keep up with what you need in the business in terms of keeping and bringing people in?
We have, but we could still be doing more, and we are continuing to do more. The good thing about us, because we're an entrepreneurial business, we're quite small. We're 1,800 now, and we're family owned. We can move really quickly and do stuff. So we can benchmark, look at our salaries, and just go, right, we're just going to do this. We don't have to kind of go through the red tape and go through loads of channels to make things happen. And like I said, talent acquisition has become higher on the agenda from a strategic point of view, because you can't operate unless you bring people in, unless you have people in your organization. So if you can't bring people in, if you can't keep them, you're not going to be able to operate. So we've as much as we've focused on how do we bring people in right now, we're also looking in the long term to how do we then, once we bring people in, how do we improve the development we have internally and have more of a better talent experience and talent journey so we're keeping people long term?
Yeah, absolutely. And Diana, you mentioned that you're seeing kind of a lot of change in the values that people have and what they're looking for. What specifically have you seen in terms of how that's changed for people?
There we go. That's an excellent question. I think what it's done is caused people just to take a look at what are their own values, what's important to them in life. And if you're having a family, it goes beyond that work-life balance. It's like really taking those things that you value, whether it's organizations, whether it's causes, whether it's volunteering, and making sure that that's really aligning with that company that you're going to be spending so much of your time with. And I think that, in the past, we have forgotten that 70% or more of our time is spent with people at work. And so if it's not a great experience, if you're stressed out all the time, or if you don't feel like you get up and you have those days where you just don't want to be there, people have rethought that and said, you know what, that's not something that I'm willing to do anymore. And so, like I said, during this interview process, what I really appreciated was the fact that people came not only prepared, but because of the fact that they're looking for something in particular, they want to see what you as a company have to offer as well. It's not just like, okay, we're looking to hire somebody and you should be happy or lucky that we have this position available for you. It's now also like they want to know, what do you have? Why is the reason that I should come and work with your organization? And what does this look like for me 5 years down the line, or, in a certain amount of time, so that I know that it aligns with who I am as an individual, who my family is, what it is that I'm really looking at doing. And so I think that's key. And I think to what Dani said, it's a good time to really take a look at that. I think because of the way the competition was before, it was the reverse flow, and corporations were hiring, and people felt like, okay, I should be happy, or I'm lucky if I get my foot in the door. And now I think the playing field is a little bit more even. And so companies are going to have to step up their game and take a look at not only how are you engaging and keeping people to retain them, but overall, what are you doing to make this an organization that people want to continue to be a part of on a regular basis?
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, I think go back 20 years, it was up to the individual to convince the company that they were the right person for them. And now it's very much the company needs to convince the individual they're the right company for them. And the advice I give to hiring managers and talent teams is that from the moment you engage with a candidate, you need to be of the mindset that they are the right person, because you need to convince them that they are, even before you've decided if they are, if that makes sense, because they need to be completely engaged with you. And what does that mean, Diana, for culture of businesses? What do businesses need to do and look at? What have you seen companies doing to try and reflect the change in values of people?
Well, the first thing I want to say is to what Dani said, also that experience right from the very beginning, it's even when you're placing your posting for the job. It really starts there. It starts even in how you engage the people that are interviewing. Are you getting back to people, as soon as possible, regardless of whether or not you're going to move forward with them? Don't forget that even if they don't come and work for your organization, you might have a service or product that this individual can use at a later time. And if you're not giving them that experience to begin with, then they're not apt to use your product as well. And so I think that's the very first thing, is what does that experience look like as the person is applying for that position within your organization? How are you engaging? How are you getting back with people? How is the interview process? Is it that rote interview process that we've all been so familiar with like 20 years ago? Or is it more engaging where this person can actually envision what their day-to-day is going to look like if they start working for your organization? And so, they're looking at that right from the very beginning. And, if it's not aligning, people are not hesitant to say at this point, thank you, but no thank you. This is not the right thing for me. So, people are not just ready to take anything just because it's going to give them a paycheck, which is great. And I think that if we all got to that point, it would not only even the playing field, it would have everybody to do the job that they should be doing, whether it's the organization or whether it's the individual applying for the job.
Absolutely. And Dani, you and I spoke about culture and businesses changing to align with the purpose and values of the people. I think that was a year ago, so probably things have changed a lot since then. So what are your thoughts around all that now?
Yeah, I actually, on the speaker circuit, I actually talk about this. So one of the presentations I deliver at forums and at conferences and summits is around the importance of organizations aligning their values with their people. People's values and what's important to them have changed pre and post pandemic. Diana explained it really amazingly, that people had a chance to reflect and decide what's important to them. And that links into, my next point, which is around, I've seen a real shift in talent acquisition and recruitment. It's moved more from kind of like just bums on seats and commodity to a real marketing approach and an employer brand approach, where companies need to be very clear on what their values are, what they stand for, and who they are, and making sure they put that out there and be comfortable with the kind of people that they will attract. Because there's this thing around, there's two things now when it comes to hiring. There's this compatibility and capability. So the candidate says, am I compatible to that organization? Does that resonate with me? Can I see myself working there? Do I want to be there? And if they don't, that's fine. Yeah, because if you think because it's from an employer branding point of view, if you're thinking about it, if you're thinking about marketing, there are, all the people on this call, there are certain brands you use that I don't use. There's certain brands that I use that you will not use, and there's a reason why I use these brands, and there's certain reasons why you use your brands, and that's because we've got an affinity, we've got what it stands for, all those different kind of things. And I think that's the same thing now with the company you are joining and the company you're going to work for. And it's become more about marketing than ever before. So companies now need to be very clear on what their employer branding is, put resource and budget behind it, and put it out there, and be comfortable with the kind of people that they get. So, and when they get those people applying to them, it's more about then testing what's their capability and whether or not they can do the job. So for me, companies need to be very clear on what their employer branding is, and put some resource and budget behind it, and make sure that they're putting it out there more in terms of, personal stories, what they stand for as a business, and what's important to them.
Absolutely. And we've actually had a question come through in the private chat, which has asked the speaker, won't be me, we asked the speakers to rank the following in importance when people are deciding the job to take. So the four we've got are salary, work-life balance, flexibility, and the company EVP. So based on what you've seen or know, Dani, I'm going to go to you first, I'll put you on the spot. What do you think they rank in salary, work-life balance, flexibility, and company EVP?
I think pre-pandemic, looking at the talent acquisition market, the most important thing generally across the board was salary. Yeah. What I now see joint first is salary and flexible working together. And what I mean by that is people want, there's this kind of new coined phrase that a lot of organizations are putting out there where they call remote first. So if you offer remote first, it means you can work wherever you want to work, obviously within that country, within that region, within that location, but you decide when you come in. So it's called remote first. You can work wherever you want to work from in that country, but you decide when you come in. Okay, and that has become more important than ever, especially in the technology sector. So we have a massive technology department within our business, and we recruit a lot of software engineers, a lot of developers, a lot of coders. And the thing they talk about is, do you offer, the first thing they ask before salary is, do you offer 100% remote working? Do you offer remote first? And we say, and initially we're starting to change our position on it, but initially we were like, no, it's flexible working, it's 50-50. And we lost people straight out the gate. So people were like, yep, I don't want to talk anymore. No thanks, don't worry about it. I'm going to come out of the hiring process. So that has become so much more important than it's ever been, because people, for the last 2 years, we've all been working from home. We've all been remote working. In Collinson, remote working was very taboo. It was only really for a small echelon of people in the business. But now we are trying to push more of a remote first kind of culture.
Believe me, it was taboo in InterQuest as well. Most recruitment companies as well, I think. But yeah, I think in terms of the software development area, that kind of market, it's most of the data and the anecdotal insights I'm getting are that some people want to go to the office, but it is on their terms. It is absolutely on their terms. And if there are companies who've got 2 days in the office, that's okay. You're going to fall behind. You will fall behind if that in those niche areas. You just will. Diana, do you have any? How do you feel about that? What Dani said there? What do you think?
I totally agree with him. I think the flexibility right now is the key because it allows people to still get their work done. And what I think the pandemic has done also is to show us that you don't always have to be in the four walls of that office to be able to be effective. In fact, what we have found out during the pandemic is some people are more effective by being able to work remotely at home. And so you take a look at what is the end result as a company, as an organization, what are you trying to do? And if you're trying to get a certain amount of production done, and that's still being able, you can get that done and that person doesn't have to be in the office, then there is that, okay, why do we need to have them here? Now, I will say this, and I've come across this a lot also, is, we're all different in terms of how we engage with people and how we relate. There are some people that during this pandemic, being at home and being, within the confines of their home was perfect for them. There's other people that, look, I need to get out. I need to be in the office. I need to have that interaction with people. So to Dani's point, having, something that's 50-50 or having something that's flexible where people can come in, not maybe all the time, but they can work remotely from home, but still having that engagement, because that's still an important part from the employee standpoint, is you don't want somebody sitting at home in a silo where now they're completely by themselves. So it is kind of, how do I make sure that that engagement is still there so I can make sure I'm connected to that individual that's working remotely? But it is what most people want. I mean, I've come in contact with so many people, especially from the government side within the states, that they're like, well, we don't care if we don't ever have to go back into the office. You're talking about saving gas, you're talking about saving time. It just allows you to be able.
Diana, was there anything else you were just finishing up before we had that screaming coming in?
No, I mean, I think that's it. I mean, really right now, what is the foundation? What is the culture of the organization? And I think to what Dani said, also, it's so important to really understand that and have that as the fundamentals for the organization, because that's going to help you to attract the right person also. If you don't have that there and you're out there interviewing and you're engaged and you're trying to get people into your organization, you don't know what you're going to get. So it's very important to really have that identified. And I think that a lot of organizations are going back and reevaluating and taking a look, because if they haven't done it in a while, now's the time to do so, to see if we are on track, if we are on par with who we say we are, who we're trying to attract. And so it's a really good time to do that, because that will help to elevate the quality of employees and staff that you're getting as you start to recruit.
Absolutely. Absolutely, thanks, Dani. Dani, have you seen in your experience, we talked, I think Dani and I talked about this maybe last time, but have you seen, we've mentioned how businesses would be judged on how they handled that pandemic. And I know, retention is such a big topic for yourself. Have you seen any aftermaths of companies losing people because of perhaps of how they handled the pandemic, maybe in a negative way? Have you seen or heard about much of that?
Yeah, I have. I've got quite a big network on LinkedIn. I talked to quite a few people, and I remember, we had me and Paul talk a lot, and I remember we had a conversation about, in my opinion, I believe that people remember how their organizations treated them during the pandemic. It was such a personal experience for a lot of people, having to work from home 24/7. Their lives being restricted by a pandemic, some people, getting COVID, losing loved ones, or knowing people who had passed away because of it. It was a very tough and challenging time. And if organizations weren't flexible and personal in their approach when interacting with their people during this time, people would definitely remember it when the time came for further opportunities and to move elsewhere. And that's definitely happened in certain organizations. I was speaking to a friend of mine a couple of weeks ago where they said that they had lost the highest percentage of senior people within the business, and because of the fact that they weren't really flexible with their way of working during the pandemic. And also, I think we've got another Zoom bomber.
I need to remove. I'm getting, what is going on?
We're getting a lot of Zoom bombers here.
I'd like to see that job description. So
so as I was saying, was speaking to a friend of mine on my LinkedIn network a couple of weeks ago, and they've lost the highest percentage of senior leaders they've ever lost. And one of the reasons for that was because of how they treated their employees and also even their senior leaders during the pandemic. And one of the things that was one of the things that they pushed back on, or was they weren't flexible with, was they had their culture was about how long you were online for. So if you were online working from home, if you weren't online at specific hours or you weren't reachable, there was a real kind of push to that. And people had to kind of that their time at desk was very important during that time, because there was a real kind of scrutiny about whether or not people were working because they weren't in the office. Yeah. Instead of being actually what the culture should have been about, was around focusing on output, not time at desk. Just because you're online for a certain period of time doesn't mean you're actually doing any work. What the focus should have been was, are you delivering the output? What is agreed expectations in terms of your objectives and output and delivery? And because that wasn't the case, people were feeling really under pressure to deliver working from home. And people were like, you know something, this is just definitely not the organization for me. I expected a lot more trust because, I've been working in this organization for a few years. I'm delivering in my day job. Why are you not trusting me to work from home and to deliver my day job? You're more focused at how long I am, whether my light is green on Teams and how long I'm at my desk for, than actually the work I'm delivering on.
I think it's interesting because I think you talked about remote first, and I think that's the culture business need to have. I think it's pushed for a trust first culture, I think, as well. You have to have.
Yes, I agree.
I might coin that myself, but I think that trust first. And I think perhaps people hadn't really had to think about it before.
No.
When it came to it, like, oh God, this is new. Manager, God, can I? But now we've learned we can. That's I suppose one of the good things to come out of it. But Diana, what do you think? What do you think? Have you seen anything like that in terms of how businesses have handled the pandemic?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I've seen it, I've had a couple of clients that are considered essential workers. And, the essential workers, especially during this time frame, they didn't have the leeway. They weren't sitting at home, a lot of them, because they couldn't go out. They had to go in. And just like you said, the wear and tear and just the toll and just that expectation that, okay, you're going to be here, you're going to go over and beyond, and not feeling like the company appreciated it at all or handled them in the appropriate way. And I'm going to tell you, a lot of companies, luxury companies in particular, luxury retail, they lost a lot of people the way that they treated, certain employees based upon the company and how they did that. Now, I will say this, some companies did a really good job. I have a lot of friends still in the luxury retail industry, and there's some organizations that were phenomenal during this time. And then others, people were like, that's it. If this is the way that I'm treated during a crucial time like this, then this is not the company for me. And so they had to restart all over again in this hiring. And it's one of those things. We have all these jobs that's out there right now. And it's because people are really taking a look at, okay, do I still want to be in this industry? There has also been a shift of industries. You have had people that have been in industries for years and years and years. And with this pandemic have then decided, you know what? This is the time for me to make this switch. They've just been hanging in there. It's kind of like, I've been here for so long, and now they really had a reason to take a look at things and say, okay, you know what? I'm going to make this shift. I'm going to do something And in addition to that,
what were these reasons?
I'm sorry, say that again.
What were these reasons, Diana? Do you know what type of reasons are there for people to decide to make a shift from one industry sector to another?
Because you know what happens a lot of times, especially if people have been in a particular industry for a long time within their career, they're going through the motions that, we've been told that when you're going through your career, everything is straight up and vertical, meaning you're looking for that next promotion, that next promotion, that next promotion. And it's not always that way. And some people have found themselves, they had the promotion, they're at this level, but they're not really happy, and they've never really questioned it before. And now, because of the pandemic, they had to sit back, reflect, and question it. And then some people were like, I don't even like going into work every day. I don't even like this job. And so they now said, well, what do I really like to do? What is something that excites me? And they're doing it. And so with as many jobs that have become available, we also have a lot more entrepreneurs, because a lot of people said, you know what? Instead of going in and doing this for a company, I'm going to do this for myself. I'm going to start my own company. So we've had just as many people that have started their own businesses during this time than we had, that have maybe left a company. So we're seeing an upswing also of entrepreneurs, which, if you take a look at it, is a good thing. We need more people that are out there thinking, coming up with creative ways and starting new businesses.
Just to also elaborate on the point I made earlier around I've got another example as well. So I was talking about an organization where they were focusing more at time at desk and whether your green light was on in Teams and instead of output, and that really caused a lot of strife within the business and people to leave as a result. The other thing was I was talking to somebody in my network, I think it was about 6 months ago, where the company tried to bring people in too soon. Even though we were kind of still in the pandemic. So I think it was last summer when when the coronavirus cases started to decrease, and we started to see a bit more movement last summer. A particular company tried to start bringing their staff back into the office really quick, sooner rather than later, and they did it too quickly. We then went into a really peak, second wave, in the winter, and people do not forget that. They were like, you brought us in too quickly. The pandemic was still happening. You clearly didn't trust us to work remotely, and that also had a massive impact, and that's been having a massive impact now. So people do remember how their organizations treated them during the pandemic, because everybody was going through, a very personal story and a very personal experience. And if they didn't feel their company was supporting them or their company's values didn't resonate with their values, you're seeing people leave as a result of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And Dani, we're seeing all over the media right now, the Great Resignation, but let's talk about the Great Attraction.
Yes.
So tell me about this and what it means to you.
I suppose we are in a situation in Collinson where we're actually trying to balance the two. We're in this balancing act, which is really challenging and tough for us. We've obviously got the Great Resignation going on, where people are resigning and leaving Collinson for a number of reasons, and also we've got this Great Attraction where we're trying to attract people to replace the people who are leaving, but also we're trying to grow back to where we were pre-pandemic. And this Great Attraction is there is a real competition and a war for talent right now, because a lot of organizations and sectors and job sectors have increased their salary. They're offering more flexible benefits. They're putting their employer branding out there more. They're promising more things to to attract people and to keep and also to keep people. And also there's a real counter offer culture going on. So you've got people where they're accepting to join a job, and then a week before they start to say, well, actually, my company wants to keep me. They've offered me more money because they want me to stay. Or somebody's about to start and they say, actually, another company wants to take me on and they're offering me more. So there's this real kind of counter offer culture, and I think this kind of stems from the Great Attraction. So what we've done in Collinson to kind of combat that long term is we've joined up talent. So we've under one umbrella. So we've got talent attraction and talent development under the same team, and we call it the Collinson Talent Team, where we have our talent attraction team working very closely with our talent development team. So when people join our organization, we want to make sure as quickly as possible they have access to good talent development, good career pathways, good career development, so that we keep them as long as possible, and good talent management. Because getting them in is one thing, but keeping them is also another thing as well. So our talent attraction specialists, our talent partners, are able to really sell and promote what we do internally in terms of development, because we're all one joint team. So we're all singing from the same hymn sheet and really trying to drive our brand that way. And I think that's very important.
What do you think, Diana?
I totally agree. I totally agree with everything that's been said. And it's one thing to offer all these things to get, someone to come on board with you, but what are you going to do to sustain it? And if you don't really have a plan, or there's not a strategy in place, they will come, but they will leave as well. It will be a revolving door. And that's what you don't want to have happen right now, because when you take a look at the investment in also training people, getting them up to speed, you want to make sure that if you get the right person, you keep that person within your organization and help them grow and develop in your organization. So really, really key. So I totally agree with everything that's been said.
And Diana, what have you seen in terms of the impact of what's going on out there has had on the investment businesses are putting into internal talent teams?
I'm sorry, say that again, Paul. Of course, I'm sitting outside and now I have all this noise that's out here right now.
No worries.
So.
I was just saying, what are you seeing based on what's going out in the market now, going on in the market right now? What are you seeing in terms of the amount of investment that's being put into talent teams?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And the investment right now, I think organizations that are doing it right, they're realizing that they have to make that investment. So right now, one of the positions that I'm actually recruiting for it's called Director of Employee Experience. And I'm telling you, I've gotten so many people because what people liked about the position is employee experience. So here is somebody that's focused on an organization that's focused on giving that employee the best experience, knowing that if you can do that, that's going to trickle down to the rest of your organization. So the investment in just development of people is phenomenal right now. And they're really taking a look at how do I do that? How do I invest in the people that's here so that they will not only continue to grow, but grow with me in this company? Because the last thing you want to do is invest and then they go someplace else. So there is a combination of things that need to happen. It's like you're investing in them, but you also have the right environment, the right company culture. So they want to stay with you and they don't want to go anyplace else.
Gotcha. Dani, what do you think? Oh, you're on mute.
I know we've spoken about this before, Paul. This is I personally have seen within my LinkedIn network a real and also from speaking to people, there's been a real explosion of investment in the talent space. I'm seeing the word talent used everywhere, yeah, and also I'm seeing a real investment in the kind of either I'm seeing roles like talent acquisition, talent experience, talent journey. I'm seeing that word appear a lot. I'm seeing brands promoting talent roles more than I've ever seen before. So the big brands like McDonald's, Google, WhatsApp, I'm seeing them promoting talent roles within their business and quite senior ones. People are realizing that I think organizations are realizing that talent is higher on their needs to be higher on their strategic agenda and priorities more so than ever. Because if you don't have the right people in the business, you can't function, you can't perform. If you're not attracting people and keeping them, you also can't deliver, you can't perform, you can't hit your commerciality and your profitability. So I'm seeing an explosion in talent more than I've ever seen, which is a great thing because obviously that's where I sit. I think as well, companies are now starting to see talent attraction specifically more than just being, like I said, bums on seats, but they're starting to see it more strategically and thinking about it more in the long term, which they need to do. Yeah. So there is the here and now. How do I get people into the business now? But there is also about how do I get people into the business long term? How do I start attracting people to my brand? How do I make my brand stronger so that people are coming to me more than me just putting roles out there to advertise?
So gotcha. So we've got a couple of questions that come through. Actually, Henry Oppens put his hand up. Henry, if you'd like to unmute yourself and you can ask your question, please go ahead.
No, thank you very much, Paul. And thanks for giving me the opportunity to speak. I guess this is more pushed towards Dani and Diana. We've sort of spoken a little bit around the I guess the investment in talent and I guess the explosion of the word talent within the industry. But when we speak about talent management, does that, and I think Dani sort of covered this off in his last question, in his last answer or response, doesn't that need to have quite a strong relationship with any strategic workforce planning which is happening within the organization? Because you speak about talent management, and I guess based on the levels of the roles which organizations will be recruiting for, like you said, people coming into that business will like to understand, I guess, what their trajectory will be in terms of their career. How can they move from being, I guess, I don't know, let's say X role into senior and then into management and then moving up above that. But then surely you'll need to have a plan for the existing staff that sit at those levels, which people will be sort of knocking on the door to get into as well. So I guess the question I'm asking is, how do you marry all of that up together, or is that actually something which we're still trying to figure out as demand sort of is quite highly outstripping the supply at the minute?
That's a great question. I can jump in and start to answer that question. What you've just explained, Henry, is one of the fundamental reasons why we now have a joint talent team. Yeah. So we've got talent development, talent management, and talent acquisition under one team to literally address what you've just said, and to have more of a strategic approach to our talent and to workforce planning and to the kind of roles that we're looking for. Yeah. Long term, over the next 2 to 3 to 5 years. And that's something that is very important to us, because if you don't have that, you might be able to bring in people now, but you won't be able to necessarily sustain them and keep them long term. Yeah. And I think I'm seeing a lot of organizations and businesses actually have talent under one roof, under one department, having the whole end-to-end journey connecting, and having it more strategic, and having it higher on their strategic priorities, and having more investment in it. Not just going, right, we're just going to offer more money to bring people in. Actually, we're going to do more. We're going to think about the skills do we need in 2 years, 3 years, 4 years time. How are we going to put that into our talent management methodology? How are we going to drive succession planning? How are we going to drive 9-box? How are we going to identify our talent and map our talent, ensure they're getting good development, leadership development, and helping them move up to the next role within, a competency framework or leveling? All of that's really key and important.
Diana, anything to add on that one?
Sure. One of the things that I'm excited about what's happening right now, I'm in human resources and have been in human resources for over 30 years. And because of the way that things need to be structured right now, and like you said, this workforce planning and strategic plan that's there, it's given human resource individuals an opportunity to really come to the table with a whole plan that addresses the whole organization. And in the past, where HR was kind of put to the back burner because you couldn't immediately see the ROI on it, they're seeing the ROI and what needs to be done right now, which for me is so exciting. So it's not so much I have to argue with everybody right now, but I have that seat. I have that ability, as other HR professionals are having, because they're being able to show this is where we are right now. This is where we want to go. This is what we need to take a look at if we're going to get there as a company, as an organization, and grow the people that we have within the organization and keep them as we're growing. So it's a very exciting time right now. We've talked about the pandemic over the last, almost 2 years and all the things that has happened, but I think it's put some great things on there that frankly would not have come about if this had not happened. It wouldn't have given us this food for thought, or we would not have had to take a look at it, because we would have kept operating the same way that we were before. So these are all great things that's needed. It's really needed to sustain an organization and to help them scale and grow, not just with their company and their product, but with the people that are important to them. And so I have a saying that your employees are your greatest brand ambassador. And so that should be first and foremost in everything that you're doing.
100%. Thanks, Diana. Thanks for the question, Henry. Edward, you got your hand up? Do you want to chip in?
Yeah, so I have a question, and obviously it's in the light of the theme today. That's what we're discussing, and it's really good to hear from Dani and Diana, what best practice is in terms of, talent acquisition and retention and so forth. So fantastic stuff. My question is more related to the manager, right? So the manager is the central person, not just in recruitment, but also when the employee is on board. That person needs to be managed by the manager. So if you have a manager who does not have the right behaviors that will help us to hire the right talent, for instance, having preferences, being biased, right? He or she wants to see a person that he or she thinks would fit best in his team. So he put his preference and choices first before companies' goals and objectives. But also when that person is hired, that manager is, the day-to-day line manager of that new employee, that new joiner. And if that manager does not have the right, approach or methodology to guide, manage, train, develop that new hire, that obviously has a big negative effect on retention. So my question is, perhaps maybe Dani, to you from an L&D perspective, what is it that you and your team do to address those managers that you see with those typical behaviors that you think is detrimental for recruitment, detrimental for employee retention, what is it that you or your company does to alleviate that, to make sure that you can hire the right people with managers that take the right approach, and that you can retain people with managers that take the right approach?
Great question. That kind of links into why talent attraction, talent management, and talent development should all be joined. And I'll explain what I mean. So within our talent management methodology and framework, one of the steps that we have is around performance engagement. That's what we call it. Yeah. Performance engagement is how we drive performance within Collinson. And that is ongoing driving of someone's performance where you have engagement between the employee and the line manager. Yeah. So little and often in terms of driving performance. And one of the things that we have created is a framework, a methodology around performance engagement, around what we expect our managers to do to drive to support the performance of their people. If they are not doing that, yeah, long term, then there are indications around performance. So we will either performance manage them out of the business, but we would give them significant time to be able to prove that. And that performance engagement piece is critical to your talent offering or to your talent agenda, to your talent strategy. And if you haven't got that linked into your talent strategy, I agree with you, Edward, it's not going to work.
Right.
So what we have created, we've created talent management toolkits and performance engagement toolkits that our managers can use with their people to drive the right behaviors. And if they're not doing that, we performance manage them on using those toolkits.
Right.
And therefore they won't get high ratings, they won't get their bonuses, they won't get rewarded for doing their job as a manager. So that is absolutely critical.
So you use an application like Profiler 360, for instance, to manage managers, right? That sort of stuff, isn't it?
That kind of stuff. So we've actually got a platform that we use, a solution that we use for performance engagement, and we have performance reviews every 4 months. The managers go through that as well. If they're not performing, we then have conversations with them. So basically, in a nutshell, performance is critical to your talent agenda, talent strategy, without a shadow of a doubt.
Good. Yeah. Thank you. Perfect.
Thank you very much. Diana, I've got a question from the private chat, which I'll go to you if that's all right. The question asked, what advice would you give to startups and businesses under 20 people where salaries might not compete and they're trying to build a business? So a lot of them will be working fully remotely. How do you build that company culture there and make people feel like they're part of something?
Yeah, that's a great question, and you definitely can do that. And so you have to give the individual, as a startup company, they have to be able to see that vision, what's happening going forward, and they have to feel a part of that. Because if you can show me where you're going and let me know that I'm going to be a part of that and I'm an integral part of that, well, then I'm fully vested. And so if you're a startup and you're getting people, you want them to really visualize and see the future. And you have to put things there in terms of even, check-ins, call-ins. I have a couple of clients right now and they totally remote. In fact, one client that I have, they're in the New Jersey area, but they have employees that's in the Philippines. They have employees all through the States, but we have regular staff meetings for individuals. We have team meetings. We have exec meetings. We have games for them. They send out, tchotchkes for the people. One of the young ladies, she just received a box today that had all her goods in there. So, she was excited. And so they're sharing that. And so, having a platform where people can, especially as a remote organization, be able to engage with each other, not just engage with the management or the key leaders, but have that engagement with each other is so crucial for any organization, and especially a startup, because you're all there for the same reason and same purpose. So if you can continue that excitement and that creativity and the ideas, okay, what are we going to do next? What does the next 6 months look like? What does the next year look like? You have people that are excited because they're part of the process.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're approaching the end of the session here. So I want to finish up with kind of a high level wrap up of just two questions really. This is about the competition for talent, and I want to ask our speakers if we can come up with kind of a top level checklist as to what businesses need to do for two things: one, to retain the best people, and B, or two, what did I say, to attract the best people. So Dani, if we go to yourself, we talk about that attraction side. What's your checklist that a business just have to do if we want to attract the best talent?
First and foremost, I think businesses need to realize that recruitment has become more like marketing than ever before, and therefore they need to invest in their employer brand.
Mhm.
I think organizations need to have a budget or a budget or a specific budget, a dedicated budget to employer branding, and they need to be doing something consistently and ongoing in terms of releasing their employer branding out into the market. I would also say that they need to look at their current benefits, remuneration, and rewards to see does it match with the current market and environment. If it's not, then they need to address that, because it is very competitive out there, and if you're not offering those things, then you'll struggle to attract the best people. I also feel that the people who are in your talent acquisition teams or your talent partners need to have a really good understanding of your business and what is on offer from a development point of view. What does the organization have to support career development, so that they are talking about those things and using those things to sell those things to people when they are interacting them from the beginning. Yeah. So people can see that actually the organization takes this very seriously. When they come in, they will get all of that when they join. I would also say that organizations need to think about where they go to get diverse talent. And we haven't talked about that, and I think that's really important. I think diversity and inclusion is absolutely critical. Going to where maybe to specific. So, for example, I was at a recruitment conference a few weeks ago, and I was introduced to 2 or 3 networks that support diverse hiring in particular protected characteristics I had no clue about. So I found out there was a Black young professional network called BYP that I'd never heard of before. There is a network that specifically works with young females that are looking to get into technology. Yeah. So these kind of networks I had no clue about before, and I'm now thinking about how we can start working with these kind of networks to get more of a diverse pool into your business. And the other thing I would say is that younger talent are really looking at what does your company do from a CSR sustainability point of view? How does your company give back? I think that's also very important. So those would be my things.
Absolutely. Diana, is there anything you'd add to that checklist to attract talent?
Yeah, one of the things that I would do first right now within your organization is just that climate check with your current employees. I think Dani said it also, you need to really finding out, because sometimes we think we have it right and we haven't asked the right questions, and we don't realize that there's some tweaking or some things that could be done differently. So really taking a survey with your current employees that you have to make sure that you do have everything right, just in terms of what that culture looks like, and you're on point for what it is. The next thing I would say is, as you're interviewing people, deliver what you say you're going to deliver. So, when people are posting for positions, you hear all about the company. And so you want to make sure that whatever you're telling people is what they experience when they get in the company. And so it starts with the onboarding. The first 30, 60, 90 days are crucial. That's where you can lose a lot of people. I mean, I've seen people that will blow, or they're out of there within, 2 to 3 weeks, because they're already feeling like this is not what you said it was going to be. And so that's a crucial time for employees, and it also stabilizes them. Stability is so key. And so those 30, 60, 90 days, and while a lot of companies will do 90-day performance evaluations, if you're waiting until 90 days, you've missed the mark. There's definitely that 30 days. And for me, it's even 2 weeks. Okay, a person comes in, it's that first week, it's the 2 weeks, it's the 30 days, and then you keep on going. But the 90 days, you should already know about that employee, how they're engaged, everything that's going on during that time frame. So that's really key. And then really, during that process, really paint that picture. They have to envision it for themselves and be able to see what their future will look like in your organization or your company. And then the last thing I would say is, within your organization, have an employee advocate group. This is a group of employees that are going to give you the crucial feedback that you need, and rotate that group throughout the course of the year. So this way you're getting constant feedback from everybody within your organization, and everybody feels like they have a voice.
Absolutely, some great advice there. And is there anything else, Dani, you'd add if we're talking about the retention side? Anything else specific on the retention side we put on that checklist at all?
I think you need to really invest in your talent management frameworks and methodology. You need to have a good team internally that's managing your talent. So you need to look at succession planning. You need to look at identifying and mapping your talent on some form of grid. You can use a 9-box grid in terms of performance and potential. And therefore, once you've mapped your people and you know where they sit, you need to make sure you have a targeted approach to their development, making sure they get what they need to move them on to their next level. And I think that's absolutely key.
Absolutely. And Diana, is anything else to add on the retention side at all?
I think that we've hit on all of it. This is, as you can see, this is something I'm passionate about. It's something that I just have so much affinity for, because I do believe that, if you have the right employee within your company, there's nothing that you can't do. There's nothing that you can't do as an organization if you have the right key people. And so if you can get those people right away and then invest in them and keep them, it's a no-brainer in terms of your organization and reaching the goals that you want to reach. So, retention, it's the key. It's not just getting them, hiring them, but it's retaining them, and it's helping them to develop as individuals. When you invest in an employee and you help them to do better professionally, you have helped that person throughout their entire life. If they're doing better professionally, they're doing better personally. If they're doing better personally, they're doing better in their household. If they're doing better in their household, they can give more to their communities. So you have the ability to touch so much by helping that individual within your organization to just do better there. And so that's my stick, and I'm sticking to it.
And I think that's a great way to end the session. So Diana and Dani, thank you so much for being involved there. Really enjoyed the chat. Diana, if anyone wants to reach out and contact you directly, what's the best way for them to do so?
Yeah, so if you want to reach out to it's solutions@bygeorgehr.com. You can get me right away. What I will tell you is I have a course that I've just introduced. It's called Hire for Growth, and it's a course on how you can hire individuals. I give you everything from my process from start to finish. You got forms, you got everything, and the rationale behind how that's going to help impact your company. And so if anybody's interested, they can reach out to me. I can give them more information about that. It's in a beta test right now, so it's an excellent time to be able to get in on the course.
Amazing. Thanks, Dani. And Dani, if anyone wants to reach out to you, what's the best way for them to do so?
Put a comment on the chat saying you can add me on LinkedIn. Dani Saadu, and this is the real Dani.
Certified Dani Saadu. Okay, good stuff. Thanks both. Thank you so much. Thanks everyone for being involved today, listening on the podcast, and I'll see you very soon for another episode of People, Culture and Tech.